G. Come and hear a story with me. Love who you want to be, who you are. Learn these lessons and we'll go far. It's story time. Story time. Story time with Mama G. Hello everybody, Mama G here. Now you might notice that my setup's just a little bit different because I am lounging on my sofa today, and that's because I'm doing a proper long story time, so I wanted to be comfortable. Now the book I'm going to read today is called Mermaid's Gift, and it's by Ronesa Aveela, and it has illustrations by Nelinda, and I really hope you'll enjoy it. It's a beautiful book. It's set in America, but I shan't be doing any American accents because I want to preserve Anglo-US relations, you see, and also it's about mermaids. Now, I did think maybe I could do this from the bath, make it a bit more authentic. But I didn't want YouTube to take the video down. So here we are. Enjoy Mermaid's Gift by Ronesa Aveela with illustrations by Nelinda. Icicles on the school's eaves dripped onto Nick as he hurried towards the basketball court, clutching a ball to his chest. His best friend George ran close behind. They dumped their backpacks at the base of a pine and wiggled out of their jackets. Laughter and giggling filled the schoolyard as other children played tag, climbed the jungle gym, or swung while waiting for parents to pick them up. "I'm first!" Nick shouted and dribbled the ball onto the court. He dodged George, who made a swipe to steal the ball. Nick jumped and tossed the ball toward the hoop. It hit the backboard, missed the basket, and flew into the court. Both boys scrambled after the ball, yelling, "Mine!" Lunging first, George landed with a thud on the ball. Nick toppled onto him. George groaned, "Ow! Get off!" Nick rolled off, laughing, and helped George up. "Guess it's yours after all. Last hoop. My mum should be here soon." "Why do you have to leave so early?" George puffed out a frosty breath. "If we want to play like Michael Jordan, we have to practice more." "Mum invited guests for my name day, and I have to help her get ready." "Name day? What's that?" "It's like a birthday," Nick said. George dribbled the ball. "You just had your 9th birthday in October. It's only been 2 months, so it can't be a half birthday." Nick shook his head. "Nah, a name day's more popular for Bulgarians. It's a really old tradition." "Your family's always celebrating something." A car horn tooted, and Nick glanced towards the road. "It's Mum. Gotta go." "Why don't you come tonight and I'll tell you more?" George frowned. "I don't have a gift." "You don't need one for a name day. When my grandmother was young, people just stopped by. Now, since we're busy, we invite guests." The car horn beeped longer. Nick grabbed his jacket and backpack. "Mum's in a hurry. Promise you'll come?" George nodded and looked at the sky. "Okay, if my parents let me. Mum says a storm's coming tonight." At the 3rd horn blast, Nick ran to the car and slid into the back seat. He rolled down the window and shouted, "Come anyway! You can stay over!" His mother sighed as he rolled up the window. "We're already going to have a houseful." "All the kids are older than me," Nick pursed his lips. "Except the twins, and they're 3. "You should try to get along with your cousins." Nick snorted and buckled his seatbelt. "They're annoying girls, and they break my toys. I wish Uncle Peter would leave them home." "You know he can't do that," his mother said as she put on the turn signal, looked to make sure no traffic was coming, and pulled onto the road. Nick leaned forward and rested his hand on his mother's headrest. "You know, if I got a puppy as a present, they couldn't break it." His mother looked in the rear-view mirror, a scowl on her face. "We've had this conversation too many times. With all the hours your father and I work, we don't have time to take care of a pet." "But Mom, I will." "Don't argue. I have enough on my mind worrying about your father out at sea. Nick let out a long breath. He's not home yet. No. He and his crew are still fishing for cod off the Misery Islands. Her voice quivered as she looked at the dark clouds gathering over the ocean. All the stations say we're in for a gale storm tonight. Your grandfather's rickety boat is old and slow. I don't know why your father insists on keeping it. Dad's been in storms before. He'll be okay. St. Nicholas willing. His mother crossed herself. Huh? Nick said. How's he going to help Dad? Since he's the patron saint of sailors and fishermen, if we pay homage to the saint today, he'll protect us. Will I be a saint too, since I celebrate the same day? His mother shook her head. Don't be silly. She parked in front of an Italian bakery and took money from her purse. Please run inside and get the bread I ordered. It's the last thing on my list. Nick frowned. You're not going to make the bread this year? I love your picker. She shook her head. I'll barely have time to prepare the carp. But the bread's special, Nick said. Do Italians know how to make Bulgarian ritual bread? Yes, don't worry. I gave him our recipe and pictures of how to decorate it. Isn't that cheating? I thought you had to make the bread yourself. According to tradition we do, but sometimes people create their own traditions, his mother said. We keep them alive to understand who we are. Anyone who doesn't know his heritage is like a boat without an anchor, floating in the ocean and searching for a pier. She handed Nick the money. Now please get the bread so we can hurry home. Nick uncovered the bread when he got back into the car. The baker had decorated the top with images of fish. He sniffed it. Smells great. And it's as pretty as yours. The car crawled along the highway. Sleet pelting the vehicle slowed the Friday rush hour traffic even more. The windshield windows squeaked as they kept a steady rhythm. By the time they reached home, the precipitation had turned to drizzle, and a dense fog covered the neighbourhood. Nick carried in the bread while his mother gathered shopping bags. Dad! Nick shouted after he rushed inside. No one replied, and he bit his lower lip. He's still not home. Check the answering machine, please, while I get the rest of the groceries. Nick listened and shook his head when his mother returned. The only message was from the town saying the Christmas tree lighting is next Sunday. His mother shivered. Will you put the salads into bowls while I call the Coast Guard to look for your dad? Nick stared at her with big eyes. You think he's lost? I'm sure he's fine, she said, while craning her neck to look out the window towards the ocean. But I want to give them a heads up that he's out there just in case. Nick scooped the different kinds of salads into colourful bowls, then unwrapped the carp. It stared at him with bulging eyes and an open mouth with a look that said, Let me go! His mother stopped at the front door after making her call. Oh, Nick, you've tracked muddy water all over the house. She threw open a closet door and it banged against the wall. Knick-knacks on a shelf rattled. I have only 2 hours to get everything ready. I don't have time to clean up your messes. I'll do it. Nick took the mop from his mother's trembling hands. Is the ghost card going to look for Dad? She shook her head and dropped into a chair, giving him a faint smile. With a sad, soft voice, she said, The storm's too bad at sea to go out right now. They said not to worry, since they haven't received any distress signals. Should we cancel the party? Nick said. His mother took a deep breath. No, everyone's already on the way from Connecticut. But I want Dad here. His mother heaved herself from the chair and smoothed out her clothes. I'm sure your father will be home soon. St. Nicholas will keep him safe. Nick furrowed his brow. Maybe he made the weather bad because you didn't make the bread. He looked up at his mother and quickly added, "But I'm sure he'll be happy after you make the ribnick." "Yes, that should make him merciful and protect our fishermen." She shuffled to the counter where she prepared dough to wrap around the carp. On the top, she added a series of half circles, decorating the fish to look like scales. When she finished, she put it into the oven. Next, she lit candles, handing one to Nick. "Help me by putting these on the shelves and tables." Nick sniffed the air. Smells like cookies. They're vanilla. It'll get rid of the damp odour." She opened the door under the sink and removed a white plastic bag. "Speaking of smells, please throw the garbage out, then come right back." The rain had slowed, but a gusty wind licked Nick's cheeks when he opened the door. He trudged down the steps and tossed the bag into the trash bin, closing the lid tight so raccoons wouldn't get inside. Looking toward the ocean, he wondered if his father's boat was on the slip yet. The neighbour's wooden fence blocked his view, so he climbed on a bench and peered over it. Dense fog obscured the ocean. While he clung to the fence, lightning shattered the sky and thunder boomed directly overhead. Startled, Nick jumped off the bench. Icy raindrops pattered against the trash can. The sleet-covered grass crunched as he ran back into the warm house. A festive white tablecloth, embroidered along the edges with fish, seahorses and shells, covered the table. His mother wiped her hands on a dish towel, her expression taut as she looked out the window at the streaks of lightning. Her voice cracked when she said, "Nick, please set the table." He arranged the plates, napkins and forks, then helped with chopping vegetables and fruit, while his mother prepared appetizers. The oven dinged, and Nick's mother removed the ribnick. Nick licked his lips. "This smells great." His mouth watered as he looked at the table. The carp took centre stage, with the bread, salads, appetizers, and a bottle of wine surrounding it. Nick's mother let out a long breath. "Finished. One more thing I need to do before our guests arrive. I have a special gift for you, Nick. I'll get it while you change into something festive." "What is it? Sneakers, like Michael Jordan's? Or a puppy?" "No puppy, but maybe your father will get you those sneakers." She peered out the window and sighed. Her eyes filled with worry. "I'm sure he'll be here any minute." A few moments later, Nick's mother knocked at his bedroom door as he slid on a clean white shirt. "Come in," he said. His mother sat on the bed and patted for him to sit next to her. Her fingers stroked a patinated brass box, decorated with mermaids surrounding a ship in a storm. "I've waited until I felt you were grown up enough to understand the value of this gift." Nick stared at the box. "What is it?" The cover creaked as his mother opened it and withdrew a compass. "This belonged to Grandpa Nicola. Now it's yours. He always said it was magical and helped him find his way home." "Awesome!" Nick opened the lid. Aquamarine crystals glittered around the outside of the compass. Inside, black navigational points stood out against a blue background. He twisted the compass, trying to be quick enough to make the arrow point in a different direction. Nick looked up. "Where'd Grandpa get it?" He wouldn't say. "Rescuers found him clutching it when they pulled him out of the water after his ship went down," she said. "The people who saved him said the only word he spoke was Assyria. He never told us what he meant." "Thanks, Mum." Nick clutched the compass. He had dreamed of being a captain of a ship like his grandfather and travelling around the world. This is the best gift ever. She smiled and ruffled his hair. "Better than a puppy?" "Well, I still want a puppy." "Take good care of that compass, and it'll protect you, too." "I'll guard it with my life." Nick hugged his mother. The doorbell interrupted them, and his mother went to welcome their guest. Nick fiddled with a key dangling at the end of a golden chain, imagining that it opened a treasure chest. He turned the compass to the backside. Writing formed a circle around a smiling mermaid sitting on a rock. Aquamarine crystals, like those on the front, sparkled in her eyes. He brought the compass closer to a desk lamp and peered at the tiny words. Nothing is more precious than life. His mother called upstairs. "Nick, George is here." He shoved the compass in his pocket and rushed down the stairs. "Hey, George, can you stay over?" George shook his head. "My mum will be back in an hour." "Only an hour?" Nick groaned. "That means I'll have to entertain the twins when you leave." Mum didn't want to drive at all, saying the weather is going to get even worse. I had to keep pestering her until she gave in. "Let me show you what I got." Nick reached into his pocket as the doorbell rang. His mother poked her head out of the kitchen. "Nick, will you get that?" "Sure," he called to her, then turned back to George. "I'll show you later." A gusty wind blew papers off a hallway table when Nick opened the door. His grandmother huddled under the covered entryway, her arms wrapped around her waist. Behind her, Nick's Uncle Peter and Aunt Sophia each held one of the twin girls, who were already whining. His grandmother squeezed past him out of the cold while his aunt and uncle set the twins down inside. The girls squealed and scrambled straight up the stairs toward Nick's room. "Oh no," he groaned, glad he had taken the compass with him so the twins wouldn't destroy it. His grandmother hugged him. "Happy name day, Nick. Let your name live forever. Be healthy and happy. Here's a little gift for you." "Thank you, Baba." He took the wrapped gift. His grandmother shivered. "Oh, I'm going to sit by the fire and warm my old bones until we're ready to eat." While Nick's aunt helped Baba take off her coat, a crash came from upstairs. Nick cringed. With an apologetic smile, his aunt hurried to his twins. His uncle scowled as he removed his coat and hung it on a hook. "We'll replace whatever they broke this time." Nick shrugged. "I hope it wasn't one of my favourite ships in a bottle." "Maybe this will take your mind off whatever they broke." His Uncle Peter handed him a huge wrapped package. "Happy name day. Let your name live forever. Be healthy and happy." George joined Nick. "So what's this name day stuff? I thought it wasn't a birthday or half-birthday, and you didn't get gifts." "Nice to see you again, George," Uncle Peter grinned. "A name day is more important than a birthday. And no, you don't have to bring gifts. We don't see Nick that often, so we like to bring him something on his special day." "Why is it more important?" George asked. Uncle Peter scratched his chin. "I guess because it's also a celebration of a saint's feast day. Today is St. Nicholas Day, so it's the name day for anyone with a similar name, like Nick here." "Hey, St. Nick, you're like Santa." George tapped Nick on the shoulder. "Do you have a St. George? I want a party too." Uncle Peter nodded. "Indeed, there is. St. George is famous for killing a dragon. His feast day is May 6th. George smiled. "I can have an outside party with dragons." He paused, looked up at Uncle Peter and spoke softly. "Can I celebrate a name day even if I'm not Bulgarian?" "Of course you can," Uncle Peter said. "Awesome!" George punched his fist in the air. "But I'm going to tell people they're supposed to bring presents." Uncle Peter laughed. "You two go play. I want to talk with your father, Nick. Where is he?" "He's not home from fishing yet," Nick said as he put the gifts from his grandmother and uncle on a table. Nick's mother came into the hallway. "I've called the Coast Guard a couple of times. They still don't have any news." "Oh dear." Baba rose from the couch and crossed herself. "Every time your grandfather was at sea, I prayed for St. Nicholas to protect him. And he always came home safely," Uncle Peter said. "Even that one time his ship sank." Baba nodded her head vigorously. If St. Nicholas had been on the ship with them, I'm sure the saint would have prayed and a carp would have jumped out of the water to fill the hole, the way one did in legends. George covered his mouth to stop his laughter. A fish stopped a ship from sinking. Nick nudged him to be quiet, then whispered, yes, carp are considered to be servants of St. Nicholas. They'll do whatever he likes. Putting her arm around Baba's waist, Nick's mother said, let's not stay in the hallway. The food is ready. Aunt Sophia came down the stairs, carrying a squirming twin under each arm. She looked at Nick. They broke the vase in the hallway. He sighed with relief. His aunt set the twins on chairs in the kitchen where the others had gathered. What a festive table! The bread and fish are gorgeous. I have to take a picture. She removed her cell phone from her purse. Nick's mother covered her forehead. Oh, please tell me you're not going to post this on Instagram. No, it's just a memory for the girls when they get older. Aunt Sophia took a picture. Now one with everyone. She looked around. Where's David? Fishing, Nick said. In this storm? Aunt Sophia said. Is he crazy? The room went quiet, intensifying, the howling wind and rain pelting the windows. Uncle Peter leaned close to Nick's mother. Do you want me to go to the wharf and look for him? She shook her head. I'm sure he'll be fine. If he had made it back, he'd be here already. Let's eat before the food gets cold. The adults loaded their plates, chatting quietly as they walked around the house. Even the twins behaved while eating in silence at a small table. They seemed to feel the anxiety of the others. More family and friends continued to arrive, filling the house with laughter. Nick received a lot of kisses on his cheeks and many "let your name live forever" wishes. Colourful packages began to pile up on the hallway table. Little by little, the beverages, carp and ritual bread dwindled. All that was left of the fish was the bones. Better grab a bone while you can, one of Nick's cousins said. A rush of children ran towards the fish, plucking off bones to put in their pockets. The adults also picked up the carp and deposited bones into bags and purses. George looked sideways at Nick. Why do they want bones? Carp bones are sacred and are supposed to bring good luck. Huh? Fish bones can be sacred. Carp ones, anyway. Nick pointed to a bone in the fish's head. See? It's shaped like a cross. On my first name day, my mum sewed the crossbone into my baby hat to protect me. George shook his head. You have some strange customs. But I'm still going to ask my mum if I can have a name day celebration in May. Nick's mother poked her head into the kitchen. Speaking of your mother, she's here and waiting in the car. Thanks, George said, then turned back to Nick. See you tomorrow, if the storm stops. Oh, okay, maybe we can go sledding. George rolled his eyes. You're dreaming. The rain washed away all the snow. If it turns colder tonight, it might snow. Doubt it, George added. My mum said we won't even have snow for Christmas. She's a weather bug and is usually right. Maybe it'll snow as a gift for me, Nick said. George looked wistfully at the sacks of colourfully wrapped presents on the table. Looks like you already got a bunch of stuff. Hope there's something good and no clothes. Nick sighed. The best gift I could get is for Dad to come home safe. With St. Nicholas on your side, he'll be okay, George said. And geez, I think your mum called the Coast Guard 100 times. She's worried, and so am I. I know. But when the fog lifts, they'll search for the boat and send helicopters out. It's not like 100 years ago. He's probably riding out the storm farther out at sea. A car horn tooted. George waved his index finger. In a minute. He turned back to Nick. What were you going to show me earlier? Oh, a cool compass my mum gave me. Nick pulled it from his pocket and opened it. And a key to a treasure chest. Awesome. George examined the objects. We'll have to see if we can find it. George's mother beat the car horn 3 times. Oh, I've got to go. See you tomorrow. George ran down the steps, opened the door and jumped in. Nick went back into the house. The noise was unbearable. The twins were screeching and all the other kids were shouting. No one acted concerned about his father except him, his mum, Baba and Uncle Peter. His mother talked with the guests but kept looking out the window. Baba followed her around, crossing herself and saying St. Nicholas would protect him. Uncle Peter pulled Nick's mother into a hug from time to time. Nothing is more precious than life rolled around Nick's head. Oh, he couldn't stand the noise any longer, so he grabbed his jacket and scarf and slipped out into the cold, windy night. The streets were empty. Only the light from George's mum's car flashed at the end of the street. The American and Irish flags on their neighbour's house flapped against the metal poles in the wind. Dad, where are you? If no one else was going to look for his father, Nick decided he would. The pier wasn't far. If he ran on the trails between the houses, he could get there in less than 10 minutes. His mother wouldn't notice his absence if he hurried back. Nick peeked in a window, then stole away down the steps toward the pier to see if his father had returned. And that's where we shall leave The Mermaid's Gift for now. Consider it part 1. If you want to find out what happens in part 2, then make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss out. And you can also follow @MamaG on Facebook and Instagram. See you soon. Bye. It's story time with Mama G. Come and hear a story with me. Love who you want to be, who you are. Learn these lessons and we'll go far. It's story time. Story time. Story time with Mom.